Hello, everyone. Welcome to Divorce Matters. Joining me today is Ben Schooley. He's a pro se coach and he knows a lot about family law. So I thought, what a perfect person to have on the show because he's been there, done that. And we always love those types of people. So before we jump in, Ben, can you kind of give us your background, how you got into this, and we'll take it from there.
Sure, man. I'm 46. I live just north of San Antonio in a little town that I grew up in. I have two exes. My first ex and I have done 50-50 and no child support for 16 years. We're about to graduate our youngest here next year when he's a senior. Never been in court. She lives at the end of my street. Never been a problem. But I remarried, and in 15, we split up. We had a 5-year-old. And that young lady took me to court an untold number of times over the next 3 years. And it was grueling and it hurt me greatly. And I got to experience family law firsthand and how broken it all is. There were 7 restraining orders. She used 7 different lawyers and spent almost $300,000 messing with me, if I remember that correctly. But it was awful. And it took everything from me. And it was a bad story. And it doesn't end well. And it was rough. But coming out of it, I kind of put my life back together. And at some point, I had told someone, for most people, when you enter family law, what's the first thing everybody tells you, right? Well, duh, get yourself a bulldog lawyer, right? Well,
yeah,
that doesn't always take you anywhere, other than to bankruptcy court. And I had to learn it all myself. And family law, it's not hard. Family law is not hard. Family law is crayon simple. It's confusing and it's scary because it's your children and it's your finances and it's your life. And so it's very, very intimidating. And I had to go through it without any help. And I don't know what the hell was going on. And I screwed up a whole bunch and I messed this filing up and I didn't do this correctly. And, and I had to figure out my own path. And I told somebody, I said, at some point I would have given my right arm to have somebody that I could call that could say, hey, man, relax. I understand how you feel. Let's talk about how you feel, first of all. And then number 2, in terms of strategy and where you're going, I think you need to think about this option over here. And by the way, here's the paperwork that you need. And here's a couple of example documents that you need. And here's some case law that you need. So go do your homework. And that could point me in the right direction to get through this. And so I started doing this really just kind of as I'll call it a hobby. And, just answering people's questions and extending a little bit of help to people. And I was quickly overwhelmed with the response and the need. And then I opened Pro Se Coach about 3 years ago. And then that has quickly overtaken my entire life. And so much so that the small business I've owned for the past 15 years, I just left that and do this full time now. And so it consumes far too much of my time and energy than I should probably let it. But I really, 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 really passionately enjoy this. I know how scared people are. And what's my favorite line? Like, you don't understand. It's like, I really do understand. I know exactly how you feel. I've been there and I've done that and I get you. And that is so relatable to most people. And so anyway, so for the past 3 years, I've been doing that. There's a really, really small cost to work with me just because I had to eat too. So last year I opened Pro Se University, which is just that. It's an online school to do lots of the things, the most common things that people need help with, like modifications, enforcements, or filing for divorce. And it's a full video course with all the documents and everything. And it kind of walks you through it without me. Without the one-to-one help, in an effort to get the cost down and make it work for people. So anyway, that's the cliff notes of what got me into this wild arena.
All right. Well, tell me this: if I am reading this correctly, do you still have an axe to grind, or is this something that you've kind of resolved and you're like, yeah, my ex did this, but I don't have any ill will anymore because
my ex is my ex and she's gonna do whatever she do. I don't that doesn't keep me up. Family law and family law, generally speaking, is so unbelievably broken. People don't believe the stories that I tell them.
Yeah, it's amazing people don't. I mean, haven't they heard it enough times? I mean,
no, they don't. Well, it's that's part of where like the quote coaching part of it comes in and talking about simply emotions is because your friends don't believe what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Because you tell your story and you say, I can't see my child. And
right.
You can see it in their eyes that they're going, what'd you do?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
What'd you do?
I know
It's
what the
bullshit,
hell?
though.
Yeah, what's going on? What's the truth? Because judges don't just do crazy stuff like that. That's not
Oh,
real.
yeah. Why do you think judges do crazy stuff, though? They do, and you know it, and I know it. These temporary orders are total bullshit. So why do you
Well,
think they
judges
do
are
it?
well, they're lazy. They're extremely
Are
lazy.
they lazy, or is it more than that?
Well, I think they're extremely lazy is on the onset of a knee-jerk reaction of what do I do with 99 couples that come through? I kick kids to mom, dad, you're a weekend visitor, maximum child support, get out. Or, there's an allegation, okay, then supervise, get out. And it's such a lazy knee-jerk reaction to most allegations. So due process is removed from the equation altogether. There's no necessity for proof at all. It's just who has the best story. So, I mean, I think that handles the majority of the wild rulings. But honestly, and another thing I tell people all the time, there is absolutely not one shred of law in family law. There's a book this big called the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure. You can throw it in the garbage. There are rules, but the judges have such discretion. They don't have to follow any of it. They literally don't have to follow the law at all. They can just say, I don't think that that applies here. And I think in the best interest, we should do this over here. You can cite case law to you blue in the face and they're going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
So it's this entire top to bottom system is so unbelievably broken and corrupt. And you never know it until you get in it. And then you're talking to your friends going, you don't understand. You got to see this. It's the craziest thing you ever seen. And all your friends are going, what'd you do? And
Yeah, what do you do?
and round and round we go until the next poor sucker comes into the system and has the same story. So until that changes, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, geez. Well, I mean, I'm thinking now it's more of a financial thing where they're financially incentivized, maybe not the courts necessarily as much as the system in itself. It's just
Oh,
self-perpetuating.
it feeds itself. Yes, I mean
Yeah.
between 4D with Title 4D money, as we all know. I mean, it is the state itself isn't going to go look under the couch cushions and find a missing $4 billion that child support supplies it. But yes, I mean I'm in a smallish town of about 60,000 people north of San Antonio, and so all these lawyers they all know each other. There's not a big population of them, and you better believe that they all feed each other. Hey, I'll make you the amicus on my case. Hey, I'll make you the guardian ad litem. Hey, you'll be our mediator. And they're all working. How much is your client worth? Oh, he's worth a lot of money. Okay, let's keep going. And it's all feeds itself because that's why miraculously, when both parties run out of money, the case settles.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's all money and they just feed themselves and people are oblivious to it until again they get into it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what are the things that you advise anyone thinking about going pro se right out of the gate? Do you
Yeah.
advise they do? What is your advice that you give them?
Yeah, I tell everybody, man, on a stack of Bibles, you will end up the same or better if you go pro se, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. But
Now,
only
why
ever
do you
one
say that? Why do you say that?
because if you have a lawyer, there's only so much justice you can afford. If you do this pro se and you actually think and are strategic and smart and you devote the time to it, now those are key parts because I work with tons of dudes that call me on Friday and say, "Hey, I got a hearing on Monday." You're
Yeah.
going to get steamrolled, dude. You didn't take it serious. You've blown it off. You put it away, and now you're going to get smashed. But if you will put the time and energy into the entirety of your case and strategically move through it, you will grind your opponent down financially and
Yeah.
emotionally and stress wise. And then you're going to get that 1 a.m. text message of, I can't do this anymore. Let's talk this out, and then
So
again,
how far do you take it? Do you make them you make them get into appellate courts and federal courts and civil courts? I mean, how far do you take it?
well, the appellate stuff and civil is where I live and die. I mean, for the majority of people, I'm catching them either I'm getting divorced or I need a modification or I need them enforcement. I mean, that's 99% of my people. The appellate stuff I do play with. It's much an outlier for me because it's just such an outlier of the case to begin with. So very few people will take things to the appellate level. So I really don't run into a whole lot of that. But you're calling me with, hey, we divorced in 2018. Everything's off the rails. This isn't working. I need a modification. What do I do? And then I'm going to walk through your pleading to your temporary orders hearing to discovery and interrogatories and admissions process to mediation to motion to compel to final. So we're going to go through that whole process, and I'm going to walk the whole damn way with you and hold hands with you, and I'm your new best friend.
Yep. Okay.
But appellate stuff I find fascinating, and I really enjoy reading it and studying it, and I understand it, and I've worked on it. I just don't get a lot of people that, say, hey, I need to work on a writ of mandamus and let's get to work. It's such an outlier for me. There's so few people that will pursue it to that level.
Why though? I mean, it seems to me that a writ of mandamus would be the way to go because it's even more expensive for them to fight you, right? Where am I wrong?
Because it's so intimidating. The document itself that you're producing is so intimidating to the vast majority of people. It's a highly technical, 80-page document full of footnotes and endnotes and all of the citations and the case law. It's just very intimidating. That's really it. It's not a difficult process, but you look at it and go, holy shit, I can't do this. This is very, very intimidating. But I mean, gosh, how many people actually take things to an appellate? I mean, it's a fraction of 1%.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point.
I read something the other day. It was something like 97% of all cases settle before jury trials. So, I mean, you're talking 3% of cases even make it to a jury trial. And then of the 3%, how many actually go off and spend the cash, time, energy, and everything to appeal it? I mean, you are into fractions of percent of people that take it to that level.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So how do you make it expensive for them, for somebody trying to fight you in family court? How does that even work?
Well, there's a myriad of tools and mechanisms available to every litigant, whether represented or not. The problem when you have your attorney is that, your ex, just as an example, your ex is withholding or doing something stupid. And you say, hey man, let's do an enforcement. And what's your attorney say? You can't afford an enforcement. It's $4,500, for me to file it, to get her served, to prepare for a hearing and do it. You don't have it. And you go, oh yeah, you're right. I don't have $4,500. And you walk away. But as pro se, you have every mechanism. There's no end to the motion to compel that you can file or the motion to enforce or any other thing. And so you simply strategically and intelligently use the tools that are available to you and you use them. You file it and you do it smart and you prepare for the hearing and you got your shit together and you set it properly and you're there and you say, Judge, I'm ready to go. Let's do this thing. And you got your statements together and evidence and everything. The only time you get in trouble using tools and mechanisms like that is if the court perceives that you're just running the bills just to be a jerk. Okay. And that only happens if you just kind of show up and be like, well, I don't really even understand what I filed or what I'm supposed to do here. I just threw some paper into the courthouse and now we have a hearing. That's when you get smacked with the gavel with, look, dude, you wasted everybody's time. Now I'm pissed at you and you're going to pay her attorney's fees. That's not what you want. But it's not really, the end game isn't like just to burn your ex down with spending all of their money into the ground, but it is a matter of driving your case as hard as you can and not quitting, using every tool and mechanism available to you, which you don't have unless you're sitting on mountains of cash to throw at it. And frankly, no worse way I can imagine to blow my retirement rather than feeding some, scumbag lord.
Yep. Good point. As usual. Okay. So have you done any civil litigation against people, your ex or anyone that you know of? Do you consult about doing any civil litigation against them? Or is this something that you've kind of said, hey, just fight it on family court and drain them that way?
You talking about like for damages?
Yeah.
No, no, I have not. My deal is over, done with. My life has moved forward and it is what it is. And it's going to finish out the way it's going to finish out. I've been talking with a lot of people about loss of consortium, which if you don't know what that is like when you and your spouse are driving in a car and an 18-wheeler hits you and kills your spouse. Then the personal injury attorneys will sue on loss of consortium, which has got no monetary limit. And that goes after their insurance policy, which is the loss of consortium is the loss of the relationship that I would have had without your interference. And so I've been trying to encourage somebody to kind of pick up that football and run with loss of consortium in a civil family law situation. As you lied. I proved it. Ultimately, it took me 5 years to do it. But you wrecked my relationship with my child and I need $10 million because I think that would set such a precedent for damages and for process and case law But to date, it hasn't happened, and I keep hoping that somebody will kind of pick up that football and run with it.
Yeah. And when do you think that'll happen?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the lawyers that touch it, well, the lawyers that will not touch it is because it's like a hot potato, right? Like, um, this is going to piss off the judge. This is going to piss off all my lawyer friends. This looks weird. It's family law. Everybody lies. I've heard that many times. It's a he said, she said, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can't get anybody to pick it up. I mean, the the stuff on civil damages and stuff is certainly a route. I don't think that's going to change anything in terms of the system itself. I mean, as we all know, a 50-50 presumption is the only actual solution to wreck the industry. And I mean, I would love to go out of business. I mean it. If tomorrow Texas voted for it and there was nothing to fight over anymore, but we're a long way away from it. And Texas is probably going to be the last damn state to do it, unfortunately.
All right. Okay, let's get into your coaching program. What are you doing with your coaching program to help other people?
Well, I mean, a general overview of the process. I mean, the first thing I do is, just a consult call of help me understand what the heck we're dealing with here. What brought us to today. I try to identify, people chuckle at me like, what'd you do? Because what I'm asking is, what is it that's triggering your ex to fight this hard? Plenty of people break up and things stay pretty amicable and everybody just goes, go do your life. I'll do mine. Take care. That happens a lot. But unfortunately, a lot of times things go completely off the rails. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is that's driving your ex. Like I was working with a guy this morning and they broke up. Okay. And then he was engaged in like 10 minutes to some other woman, right? That was the trigger. That was his worst sin. And that's what flared this up. And so it helps to identify, I guess, what's driving people. But then what brings us to today? Where are we at in the process? Do we have temporary orders? Do we have final orders? What is it that we're trying to work on? And then, here's our strategies, man. We can do this. We can do this. It's your call. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'll tell you what I do. But at the end of the day, you're in charge. Also, unlike a lawyer, who will tell you exactly what we're going to do. But, here's our pros, our cons, our ups and downs. And then off we go. And then I provide you all the paperwork for that chosen path. I give you examples from other people that have done it. I tell everybody I'm not a lawyer. And for the most part, generally speaking, what that means to them is that I literally can't put my fingers on a keyboard and start typing for them. I can tell you what I would say. I can show you what other people have said. I can help you craft your words. I just can't do it for you. Yep. And then really, honestly, that's all the easy part. The part I spend the most time on is the hearing itself. That freaks people out. They're very nervous about it. They have to actually go to court and stand up in front of a judge with a $500 an hour attorney next to them, and they have to act like they know what they're doing. And so that freaks people out badly. And so we spend a lot of time typing out all of our statements and understanding the process and the questions, and I'll do mock hearings with them and kind of act like I'm the witness or the lawyer or whatever. And you know what? And then on the other side of it, we huddle up after the hearing and say, what happened? What are our options? Where do we go from here? And then we carry on. And, and I try to prepare everybody for the worst in terms of emotional impact of things. People tend to I have a whole speech about one of the worst things you can possibly have in family law is the word hope, because hope will wreck you if you're not careful, because you're going to convince yourself, I got this. There's no way the judge can hear what I'm about to tell him and not do what I want. And then guess what he does? Exactly the opposite. And then you are going to shatter into a million pieces. Right. And it's hard to put you back together. And so I make them.
And that's because of all their discretion, right? They have so much discretion.
That's because, remember what I said, there's no law in family law. They can do whatever the hell they want either. There's absolutely, literally no limit to what they do. And literally no limit to what a judge can do in family law. Yes, you can appeal it. Yes, you can run it up the flagpole. You might even win. But when you win at the appellate court, guess where the case goes? Right back to the judge that you just pissed off.
Well, you can recuse him, though.
Sure, you can try. I tried.
No, I mean, after an appellate decision ruled against the judge, you could recuse him because you're expecting him to be biased now that, or her to be biased once. It's not foolproof, but yeah.
I know I did it, and it didn't go. He said no, I'm not recusing, and it was an absolute disaster. And then just as I suspected, he beat the ever loving hell out of me for the next 6 months. It was awful. I mean, he
Yeah,
didn't like my haircut.
you should have recused him.
No, no, I tried. That's what I'm saying. I had 9 other litigants with me on a recusal, and we lost because the judge, I'm in a little town, and there's lots of backroom deals, and I lost, and then I just got the ever loving snot kicked out of me for a long time. But I mean, I hear you, but it's just everything is climbing a hill, and so it's very difficult. And and you can try for things like recusals and other things. And if you lose that recusal, now you've double pissed him off because now you've called him biased. And you embarrassed him by winning an appeal, which goes on his record. And now I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Yep. So it's rough, man. I mean, everything about it is rough.
Yeah. Well, I would advise people, if it were me, to recuse any judge you beat at the appellate level. But even at the appellate level, I think they look at pro se's and they're like, this guy's in pro se. What does he really know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how many pro se's have won at the appellate level, and
I don't know percentage wise either. I mean, I know personally many that have, but I agree. I mean, of 1,000 filings, 20 of them might be pro se, and then how many of them actually won? I mean, I don't know the percentages, but it's not a lot.
Right, it's not a lot.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's not a lot anyway. But if you practice what I've talked about here, and you've done the RIPSI model, and you've identified the code, you've identified things that they did that were wrong. If the appellate court doesn't, look into that, then you do have a federal option as long as it's civil, or as long as it's due process violations, which they regularly take away from you.
Yeah. Yeah, we do I do a lot of declaratory judgment filings, and get people to go on the record and simply list out their constitutional rights that must be affirmed by the court, which fascinatingly enough, the court then turns around and violates.
Exactly, because they why they don't have any accountability. Nobody's.
Nope.
You can do whatever I want. The state bar. You could complain to the California Judicial Council if it's a judge, but I mean, they've both been written up by third parties that have come across and audited them and said, at least in California, they don't do their job. In fact, the state bar just today came out with an apology letter saying, yeah, we know this attorney had 240 complaints. But we finally did something. We finally removed his license. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what's going on.
I just posted something the other day about the Judicial Oversight Committee for Judges, and it was something 1,700 and something complaints in fiscal year 21. Of the 1,700, 140 were investigated, meaning the entire balance of them were simply thrown in the garbage. And of the 140, I think it was 18 were actually disciplined.
Yeah, so they don't feel like they're going to be disciplined, so they just continue to do what they do.
Of course.
And then good luck in your family matter case if it's a writ. They can choose to hear the writ or not. You do have a final appeal, though, that they must hear. It takes you forever to get there, but you do have remedies, and then you do have a federal option. I've got a friend now that's been successful in federal court and templatize what it is that he's doing in order for everybody else to kind of to model after. But anyway, what else do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean that's a lot of it. It's I try to take the fear and the unknown out of a system that is inherently overwhelming to people. It's so scary. These are your two small children that you're fighting for, and the thought of losing them or being restricted is almost overwhelming to you. And then you're fighting a family law system where everybody, since you were born, the only thing you've ever heard is, duh, you hire a lawyer when you go to court. But then you can't afford one because you make $15 an hour and you're working hard to cover this crazy child support bill. How do you get out of the maze, man? The only way out of the maze is to advocate for yourself, and nobody will advocate harder than you will. And so if you'll put in the work and the time to do it, it's not that hard. I just was on a phone call for about an hour and a half, and this poor schlub, I said, remember what I told you about how this isn't hard? And he said, yeah. And I said, but do you remember how I told you that this is going to take a shitload of your time? Yeah. Yes, I do. Well, you just lost your weekend, because here's all that you have to do for a hearing on Tuesday. It's overwhelming amount of work. opening statements to to witness questions, to witness statements, to everything, and all your evidence and all your exhibits and everything, and you gotta become a lawyer in the next 96 hours. And so it's extremely difficult uphill process, but it's not possible. It's not hard. And frankly, I would have given anything to have somebody like me that could have come along in my own journey, because I'm doing the same thing you guys were doing, which is just opening every door and every cupboard and going, what do I do? How? What tool? What book do I read? All I can do is Google all day, and then I would go to court, and then they'd say, "Well, you filed this wrong," and I'd get thrown out, and I'd have to go back and go start over again. And so I learned the hard way, and it wasn't a lot of fun.
No, it wasn't a lot of fun, and I did the same. Lost a lot. It's only recently where I think I'm holding my own and citing case law. I use the RIPSI model, which are what are the rules that govern whatever it is that you're talking about? How do you interpret them? How do you present them? And then what's the conclusion that you ask the judge to conclude?
Yeah.
Now, if you show that model and you do that in every pleading you have, and you're right about case law, you're right about the rules, you should win. And if you don't, you should appeal it. I've had a couple times where a judge has said, "No, this is wrong," and then he's gone in a motion to reconsider. He's come back and reversed it because I pointed out to him, "Look, this is a law."
Yeah.
And there's no local rules. You got to be careful of local rules that override it. And he did the right thing and he reversed it. That's happened a couple times, but most of the time they just do what they want.
Yeah, you got a lucky judge. In my own personal deal, I remember we had a therapist that made a custody recommendation on the stand, and I knew he was going to do it, so I objected. And I read the law in Texas that says that you cannot make a custody recommendation without performing an evaluation, which has this laundry list of requirements, right? And I objected, and he said overruled. And I said, "Excuse me, I'm reading from TRCP number 657.4, which clearly says," and he said, "I don't think the legislature meant that to apply here. And if you say it again, I'm going to hold you in contempt and fine you $500. Sit down, please, sir."
Right. Yeah.
And I said, "Oh man!" And it was at that moment I knew I am in a world of hurt here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a way out.
Did you get a way out, or did you have to deal with this judge, for the rest of your trial?
Well, it's a really long, awesome story. I'll tell sometime on a Lifetime channel. But he ultimately was voted off the bench, and there was about a 9-month gap. And when he was voted off the bench, of which I was extremely vocal about making sure he was voted off the bench, he beat the shit out of me for those last 9 months.
Yeah.
And so, no, my case settled. I have virtually no access to my son, and have not for the past 3 or 4 years now, and will not ever.
Well, so, that's unbelievable. I'm sorry to hear that.
I've been officially legally erased, and God and I argue a whole lot, because my friends like to tell me, like, "Well, Ben, you went through all that stuff so that you could help other people," and I said, I would gladly not know anything about anything that I'm talking about, because this is not pleasant at all. But here I am. So
why haven't you filed any kind of civil suit? I know you settled, but if there's
honestly, I'm so fragile to that entire environment as it relates to my own personal case. I don't think I have the fortitude to pursue my own case. I'll do yours, Mark. Well, I'll fight like a devil for you.
Right.
Me, that took everything in the world for me. I can't get back in the waters.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
I see my son on Tuesdays at football, and we talk every night. And he's talking about, he's 12 now, so he's talking about, well, when I'm 16, I can come over anytime I want, this and that. Yeah, well, and so I've kind of
make a determination. He can make a determination at 14.
Yeah, he could. He won't.
He won't go against his mother.
Yeah, That's right.
I know we weren't talking about. I just like understanding the motivation. Now I clearly understand.
That's it, man. That's it. It has become just a passion for me, because I know how you feel. I know how frustrated you are. I know that you're crying at night. I know that you're freaking out. I know that you're not working. I know that you're not sleeping. I know that you're drinking too much. I get it. I get all of it. And I'm one of the few people that really will understand this. And then not only that, but I can talk you off the cliff, and then I can say, all right, now that you've done freaking out, let's work on this thing over here, and let's move forward. Let's be smart. And I would have given anything for that, and I didn't have it, because I'd just shatter on the floor too, and I'd sit there for 3 weeks, and I come through and smack you upside the head and say, let's go, come on.
Well, any of you hearing this, I've got charity called Kids Matter, and this is exactly what we do. We also help fund attorneys. I mean, hand-picked attorneys, because most of them I don't trust. They're part of the system and don't recognize the system is corrupt or evil, however you want to put it. I don't think it was intended to be that way, but because there's not a lot of accountability, there's a lot of actors that are nefarious within the system. And then if you're a good person, in order to succeed, you kind of have to act like everybody else. You're going to lose cases, and that's not good for your livelihood. So I get it. I get the entire system. I understand what's going on. I've interviewed enough former judges and current attorneys to know. I know what's happening. What I have a problem with are the CJP and the state bar that isn't doing anything about it. They're just protecting their own, and that's it. That's the bottom.
Lawyers protecting lawyers.
Yeah, go figure. And the legislature won't change because it's such a lucrative industry that, why change something that's not broke in their eyes? But what they're doing is breaking down families like your own. And it's just sad. I think there will be at some point, whether it's me or somebody else, somebody that gets and does a federal class action and takes these things down. I mean, you have
but that's one thing I've said as a solution. People ask me that frequently, like, how do we change something? There's many mechanisms, as you just said. One of them I've kind of wished for is, I said, if you could equip millions of parents as knowledgeable pro se litigants, you will flood the system with so many cases. Judges, one of the things that they run on are their clearance rates, it's called, which is how many cases that they're bringing in and how many cases they're disposing of. If you have millions of knowledgeable pro se litigants that absolutely smash down the doors of the courthouse with filings, it's going to blow the clearance rates out of the water. And then the judges are going to start screaming to the legislature saying, fix it.
Yeah, I think I've thought of that. And I think they'll do? They'll just label it all frivolous.
Well, maybe, unless it's not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not hard to make a modification filing. I mean, we could call it frivolous all day long, but now you got to filter through which ones are real and which ones aren't.
Well, they'll look for templatized, kind of pleadings where people are filling in the blank and they say this is all planned. I think the way through this is to do what's, friendly, peaceful civil disobedience at the courts, and protest, and maybe there's some people out there that will eventually just block the courts and not let anybody in until and get the press there and all that. I think that's probably going to be what's happening. I'm not going to advocate that to anyone listening to this, but I think that's it. I also think a class action. I also think, and this is just hard. You're more confident in it than I am. I know how difficult it is to learn the law. I agree it's not that complicated, but it takes a while to get over the hump of just learning their stupid language. Yeah. But a bunch of people filing federal lawsuits, individual pro se federal lawsuits, going after due process and civil rights violations, because those are violated every single day. A
million times a day. Yeah, the narratives are broken. I mean, the narratives are broken because guys in particular are told their whole. I mean, how many bad jokes or memes do you see on Facebook about, like, oh, LOL, she took half your shit? Well, that's not a joke when it happens in real life, but we've all been brought up in this, like, when two people divorce, she gets the house and kids and you go live on your buddy's couch and pay support. Because why? Because it's for the children. And this narrative is beaten into the population. It's such a large number that until you go through it, you start going, wait a minute, this isn't right at all. I only make this much money and you want $1,800 a month for our child? What are you talking about? This isn't about a kid. This is subsidizing my ex. Right. And, and now you're going against the narrative and your eyes are starting to open, unfortunately, to what it is. But, the narratives that we're all told are not in the media. I mean, it's that, child support is to support. What was the legislator in Texas? They just shot down that 50-50 bill 2 years ago. And he literally said, well, it was because the young mothers couldn't get the child support.
What? So they don't have to do with one another. Maybe they're not getting child support because the fathers or some mothers.
He said it on camera, on the news station camera. And they said, why'd you kill Bill 1836? Well, what, blah, 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 blah. One of the reasons was because the women couldn't get the child support. And, my head explodes. But
first of all, that's a sexist statement right there.
Yeah. No.
Second of all, Second of all, maybe they're not getting child support because the fathers are pissed off they're not seeing their kids.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, in
You know,
Texas, 92% of all custodial parents in Texas are the mom.
yeah. Well,
And
I
if you're not going to
understand
tell me
that.
there's not a bias in that, I don't know.
Well, we all know there is. I think even
No.
most women listening to this, and it's
You
about
know, but
50%.
strangely, though, I will add this strangely, and I was really surprised by this when I started doing this. Approximately half of my client list is women, which absolutely stunned me. But I have come to learn, I think, in my own personal theory, is that men, as I just spoke to, men are programmed to expect this injustice in family law. I'm going to lose my kids. I'm going to lose all my money. Got it. That's exactly what I'm expecting, whether they admit it or not. I believe men, for the most part, expect this to occur. Women do not expect this to occur. So when it happens, holy cow, they will fight like crazy to
Yeah.
undo this justice in greater numbers than men. And so I've been really surprised by it because, I mean, women get steamrolled too badly. And so I've had a bunch of them come, and it's surprised me since day one because they come in and are just highly emotional and very, very passionate about doing what they got to do. Because it's like, by God, I'm not going to stand for this. This is injustice, and I won't stand for it. Guys, by and large, kind of go, well, shit, that's how it goes. You know, that's the breaks, and that's what happens. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be the breaks,
No, I agree.
just to comment on that Texas thing. I didn't know it was 92%, but I do know that they collect more in Title for defunding than any other state in the union. They're not the biggest
4 billion.
state. Yeah,
4 billion.
I thought I heard it was 5 billion, but
It might be now.
They're not the biggest state in terms of population, but they do collect the most child support. And isn't it funny? Then you have this inequity where 92% of the situations.
92%. And Texas is also like last in the country because they do not take into consideration overnights in terms of child support calculation. They have a new law 2 years ago for Texas expanded standard, which every other weekend runs you Thursday after school to Monday back to school. It's approximately 45% of the time. There's absolutely no change to child support law. So you're supporting the child 45% of the time with 100% obligation support. Wow. It's grueling, man. It's gruesome, nasty, sick business that Texas runs, and they're horrible about it. And they're not going to let go of it without a bloody, awful fight.
Yeah, why would they? It's a big money maker for them. But
huge.
Who are these people that don't recognize at what cost or what Faustian bargain is being made in order to keep that 5 billion or 4 billion coming in every year? How many families are being destroyed as a result?
But it's legalized child trafficking. I mean, you're turning one parent into a visitor only so you can make money. That's called child trafficking, and it's completely legalized and normalized. And we all have the case law where it says under the Fourth Amendment due process clause, a parent cannot have their rights minimized to their child without full adjudication being proven unfit. But every single day, every single parent in Texas that goes in family law is immediately minimized.
Yeah, and it's all temporary orders, which aren't appealable, so they can go on forever.
And there's no way. I mean, but that's a standard possession order.
No, I get it. There's a great appellate case. Is either an appellate case or a federal case, and I'm going to link to this. Where these three judges are sitting there looking incredulous at a CPS attorney. This CPS worker had been proven to be lying and putting in false evidence.
I know what case you're talking about. She said I had a right to lie.
She was trying to argue that they had a right to lie and to produce evidence, and it shouldn't be used against them. It's like,
yeah, I've seen that. I saw that.
But that's the attitude. But that's the attitude these people have, is that there's no law against it. I can do it. And the three judges were looking at her like, you're nuts. There's no law. It's presumed that you're telling the truth. That's why there's perjury charges. It's presumed you're telling the truth. And if you're not, then you could be brought into court and sued.
Yep. It's an awful
attitude. The big news there, Benjamin, was the attitude of this person that this was okay. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Yes, agreed. It's as you know, I mean, it's a nasty, ugly industry of which needs terrible reform. Till that happens, I like to do what I can to help people avoid some of what I went through. And I mean, I ended up in the hospital 4 times with panic attacks and other things. And, I mean, I lost my company. I gained 40 pounds. I was in terrible shape and health. Well, in the end, what I actually got me to stop was I was fully suicidal at the end. And it was like, this is either going to kill me or I need to stop. And so
Right.
I had to stop. And man, if I can be some sort of soothing voice for people to say, man, don't go that far. Don't. There's a point you got to worry about you because you deserve life too. In my case, I had two other kids. Remember from my first marriage where I had 50-50, they were at home. And I remember telling my judge that. I was like, thanks, Judge. I got to go. I got to go make dinner for my two other kids and I'm safe
Yeah.
to be,
So the irony
like,
here,
go to hell.
the irony here is you're allowed to have 50-50 with your two other kids, but not your other. It's like, this is such a contradiction that they're not getting. They're getting it. They don't care.
I brought it up and he just snorted at me and smirked and off I went. And so, but yeah, I mean, I raised, I have a 16-year-old lives with me 100% of the time. And I mean, he's with me
So do I.
365 days a year. But I can't, but I'm not safe to drive my 12-year-old to his football.
It's absolute insanity.
Yeah, I know. My 16-year-old and I are going to the coast tomorrow to go fishing for the weekend. It's the guys' weekend because I'm safe for that, but I can't take my kid to go get ice cream.
You can't, you probably know this. You can't take what these people do seriously.
No.
It is corruption. It is a system that's built around money and to take yours.
Yeah.
And they don't care if it's logical or not logical. They just do it anyway. Like I would love to have seen you appeal that and brought up the fact that, hey, one judge says I'm fine to have my 16-year-old full time, another 50% of the time, but never with this child. What? Yep. What?
Good luck. Good luck rationalizing your way out of that maze.
Well, they're going to say, well, we're going to take the judge's word for it. Maybe you have a personal problem with the 12-year-old.
Discretion.
No, then let the 12-year-old testify to that, which they won't do. It's just insane. It's insane. Anyway, yes. It's been great. How do people get a hold of you if they want to work with you? I'm sure plenty.
Really easy. www.prosecoachtx.com. That's how you find me. All my contact info is there. The university info is there. The one-to-one classes are there. Anything you need, I'm there. There's a consult form in the middle of the page. It comes directly to me. And then we get on the phone and just chat for a little bit and figure out if I can help you. If I cannot help you, I will tell you I cannot help you. If you call me and tell me that you're trying to get back at your ex just because you're pissed off, I'll hang up on you. If you just call me and tell me you want more money because he's making more money, I'll hang up on you. But if you need help and you're lost and you're scared and you're confused, like everybody I work with, then I'm your guy. And I really am passionate about it. This is all I do full time. And I love it, man. And people I work with, they tend to be with me for way longer than I think they would. You call me and I'm going to do a modification. Next thing you know, 7 months later, we're still talking because that's how long this crap takes, right? At the end of it, we're dear friends. And I mean that. I still talk to a lot of guys that cases are resolved. And I just still talk to them just because we went through bloody warfare together. And when you go through bloody warfare, you tend to kind of form bond.
Totally.
So, that's what I do it for. And I hope I hope it make a difference for somebody, and some kid somewhere, will never know me and say, I sure am glad that guy helped my dad or my mom.
Yeah, that's kind of my motivation is if I was put through this, I could only imagine somebody without the same resources and network that I have, what they're going through. I'm sure most of them just give up.